Let's invite our Cabinet Secretary in charge of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, Dr. Deborah Barasa, who's here with us in the studio. Waziri, good morning.
Thank you so much, Latif, for giving me this opportunity to come and share what we're doing as a ministry. Indeed, we were given a target in 2022 to be able to grow 15 billion trees. And we know the benefits of trees. I mean, that is 30% coverage. We have the importance, including carbon sequestration. There's the commercial or economic benefit, the green jobs that come with it, among others. And that is why, as a ministry, we said we need to look at this economy, restoration of the ecosystem, as well as rehabilitation of the ecosystem, and again, bringing climate resilience, among others.
We shall get into that conversation.
Yes, yes.
First, what we like to do with our guests is we have a quote. Some words that were said some long time ago, or maybe not so long time ago, by somebody. And then we see whether they make sense today. And Janet is going to give you the quote.
Yeah, 1972, was it a long time ago? Long-ish time ago. 1972
is a long time ago for the majority of people in this country. They were not born.
It still blows my mind that 70s was ages ago.
Right. Average age 19, meaning this is true. People were born 2000
It's prehistoric.
Wole Soyinka from Nigeria once said, the greatest threat to freedom is the absence of criticism. The greatest threat to freedom is the absence of criticism. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think even our Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga also talked about that. That is criticism that actually helps us. It's how you take it. If you take it positively, then you're able to grow. So I believe in that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Is this is the first time that Mazingira Day has been officially commemorated as a national?
Yes.
Right? And I know that you had already started talking about the importance of the cause and why it's important to plant trees. I almost want to move ahead, and Eric and Mariam will pull me back if I've gone too far ahead, which is that we're at 2 billion, correct?
1 billion.
We're at a billion?
Yes, yes.
We're at a billion of 15 billion.
Yes.
Talk to Kenyans, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because on the one hand, it might sound like a ridiculously low number, but you might say, actually, if we carry on in this pace, we'll achieve our goal. Is it a good thing or bad thing that we're at a billion?
Okay, it depends.
Okay.
So when you look at the previous administration, they did 38 million in 5 years. We've done 1 billion in 2 years, because the first year was really about, strategizing and see how to achieve this. So the forest sector was not well, structured in order to see the benefits when it comes to economy, resilience and restoration. So with the 15 billion, that's 30% coverage. However, you see that our president has, a bold target. It's an ambitious target of 30% coverage. So indeed, according to the president's target, we are not on course, but from the previous administration, we are more than, I can say, 500%. We're doing well. But also we look at best practices across the globe. When you look at Africa itself, Ethiopia has done 49 billion. We've been able to sit with them and see what are the best practices and try to re-strategize for our country. And we have the Nordic countries also who are doing well, working again together to see, they came up with the bond challenge. And so how can Kenya show leadership and position itself to rally this cause? Because from the bond challenge, it was only 50% of what the president is targeting. And also when you look at forestry, it's something that has not been ventured into. Like Mazingira Day is about fruit tree growing, right? In our own way, we want to contribute to fighting food insecurity in Kenya. I believe that no child should sleep hungry. And so that's why we said, let us start with the primary schools. Let us ensure that we have fruit trees there. But also the other components that now the ministry is looking into. We've had, bills like the Forest Conservation Management Bill. We've been able to have strategies. Those include the bamboo strategy and, agroforestry, commercial. We have RED Plus, so that we can boost the green economy through those platforms, so that Kenyans wataweza pata pesa mfukoni as they grow their trees. Yes.
This 1 billion trees, do you have like a breakdown of where they've been planted?
Yes. So we have the Jaza Miti app, where whenever one plants a tree, they're able to incorporate that. It's also geo-mapped, so we are able to know where precisely and where is it lagging behind. As you know, more than 70% of Kenya is ASAL. And so again, we need to also look at those areas. So we are monitoring that when it comes to the numbers, the geo-mappings, the what ecosystem is being restored, which partners, which private sector, which government MDAs are doing that, and again the communities. But now we want to really rally this and see if there are any Kenyans who want to donate, because like when you look at Mazingira Day, you were in a primary school at one time. What can you take back? Fruit seedling costs around 150 shillings. Now, if you just plant that fruit tree, it might be able to feed tens and hundreds of children in that school. So just that 150 shilling contribution, or just going there to plant the fruit tree, can have impact, feed a hungry child. And so we want to start with the primary schools, and then now we can scale up moving forward. Thank you.
You say the I've had the Jazamiti app for a while, and I look at it, and the number it's giving me 722,422,336.
Yes, those are the ones that have been documented in the system, but there are other reports that we also receive. So when it sums up, it comes to 1.06. So again, it is our task, because we've seen that is a gap, that people are not informed, they're not capacity built, and also to look at how we can make the system efficient and effective. Whether you have data or not, whether there's network or not, you can be able to incorporate it. So those are discussions we are having, how we can ensure that we are complementing and we are strengthening the system so that every Kenyan can incorporate. Yes.
Sorry, that number is 726,000.
722,000.
So it needs to be updated.
402,336.
Right, quite a big discrepancy there.
Million.
722 million, sorry.
Yes. Okay.
722 million, 402,336.
All right.
Yes.
Then the question is how, when the planting happens exactly, right? What are the mechanisms aside from Jazamiti? Because I think a lot of people are aware that there's a Jazamiti, but do they have the app? Like you said, do they have data? How do we actually keep track? Is it Kenya Forest Services who are looking around? If it's fruit trees, how do we actually verify these 721.06 billion trees? Yeah.
Yes. So how we verify is once you incorporate in the app, you also geomap it. And after that, now we have the satellite imaging again, although it peaks after 5 years, but that is what we'll want to monitor. And then thirdly, we have people who go to the ground to verify that. So we are looking at technologies, improving how we can look at tree coverage, because we can look at it as the number of trees, or we can look at it as hectares. When you talk about 15 billion, we're talking about 10.6 million hectares of land. So then again, we try and match all these things up to ensure that we're doing the right thing.
That you're on track.
Yeah,
This year's theme is citizen-centric tree growing and environmental stewardship. I wonder whether there's a gap in people feeling like there's ownership of this campaign. I can remember a time when tree growing was something people did passionately. And I'm trying to figure out whether you think there's a gap. Is it the way it's been communicated? It sounds very technical and out there. When I think before, tree planting was something people did effortlessly. Would you say part of the gap in numbers and slow progress is because citizens haven't fully owned? Or do you think there's another reason?
Yes. So we are looking at best practices across the globe, right? And also the country. And indeed, community ownership is again a challenge, and we are looking to strengthen community sensitization and engagement. Currently, we are using the community forest associations and again, some interested parties who are looking at environment, and forestry. But again, we need to scale it up, because we are saying the environment is indeed our responsibility, and we need to reaffirm it, and we need to nurture this from childhood, because when a child plants and grows a tree and they're able to see the fruits, there's stewardship, there's leadership, there's caring, monitoring that is being enrooted in that child. So that is the behavioral practices that we want to have in Kenyans, and we are working towards that and looking at how we can strengthen the advertisement to show ownership. Again, the seedling production, we've had a lot of seeds, but then the seedling production was a gap. So we are now strengthening, ensuring that we have our tree nurseries being able to produce as much seedlings as possible, so that when you're telling Kenyans, because this is what happens in Ethiopia, they are told, each one of you must go and plant 10 trees, and the seedlings are there. Yeah, and the holes have been dug. So then it's easy for people to catch up. And you can see those campaigns happening in other countries. So we, as a ministry, you can be rest assured that we'll be calling out, rallying people to go and plant trees, even as we have the seedlings available for all Kenyans. Right.
On a thread on something, of these 15 billion trees, how many do you estimate? And I know we'd spoken to Aden Duale when he was cabinet secretary. How many of these trees are meant to be fruit trees?
30%.
30% are meant to be fruit trees, so that's okay. Then how do we sustainably grow the trees vis-a-vis planting? Because it's one thing to plant. We could plant 15 billion. How many will we harvest? How many will grow to maturity? What's the contingency there to ensure that we actually grow 15 billion?
Yes. So as with KFS, yes, we have our staff who have been trained in this. And again, we are capacity building the community in order to be able to ensure that the trees do grow, how they are supposed to grow them, say in the ASAL region, the technologies that have been implemented across the globe to support in tree growing. And so basically capacity building is really what we are looking into, having human resource on the ground to support that, and then planting during rainy seasons, so that way we can have water available even as they grow during the young age. So we are having that. And actually, even for the trees that we've grown, we are seeing a survival rate of up to 85%. So we're doing a good job as we continue monitoring. And even when you look at the geo maps, you can see that the country is gradually becoming green as the years grow. So we are optimistic that we'll be able to get to the 30% target and have the fruits and improve our economy through forestry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to get like some tangible plans for how to build this capacity, one, because as the KFS as is, I don't know how big an organization it is, to be quite honest, but I'd like to know, the numbers of rangers, etc., and people caring for these trees. And then the 30% that are fruit trees, I know a lot of them will also just be in residential areas. They'll be in homes, they'll be in compounds, they'll be in your farm. So what's the plan on building capacity for those people taking care of the trees?
So across the country, we have more than 317 tree nurseries. These are big nurseries, holding up to 2 million seedlings. That is what we hope again to achieve. We've had a bit of challenges in that. We've been able to get resources, and now we want to ensure that they have capacity to have as much seedlings as possible, so that we are able to produce to Kenyans over 2 billion seedlings. So that is the starting point. Now within the KFS, again, we have the staff who again have been trained in this. Within the county, we have, especially in the forest, we have the community forest associations, okay? And again, we have community-based organizations. So it is just being able to train them and then ensure that this is being trickled down, which again, the training is ongoing, it is routine. It's just maybe routine refreshers, so that they are able to know how this is done. So that is ongoing. We were able to discuss, and we'll have the NYS again supporting us, and through their capacity building, they'll have one of the curriculum incorporated is how they can grow the nurseries and grow the trees. So again, they will be a force that will be able to reinforce communities to pick this and take it up.
I like the strategy of schools, because just primary schools alone, you have an army of about 8 million people who can be planting and nurturing trees on a daily basis. What I'm concerned about, though, is that I don't hear a lot of this conversation coming from schools and communities. So I'm wondering whether it really is happening in schools. One, you can just give us some clarity. What program are you rolling out to the Ministry of Education? So when you go to a certain school, Kimana Primary School, is a school required to set aside an orchard for planting and nurturing of fruit trees, that every child knows that I know I have a tree in that orchard, and so on and so forth? And in that case, are there clubs that have been established in schools, tree planting or fruit tree clubs and so on and so forth? Are there such rewards being given in schools? What is the partnership exactly with the Ministry of Education? Because those are your partners in schools. They're the owners of schools.
Absolutely, you're right. And when we look at schools alone, when we calculate with the numbers that you have shared with us, we should have more than 260 million trees planted by students and teachers in schools and the TVETs. So it's indeed a platform that we can utilize. And we have been utilizing, even for Mazingira Day, some of the rewards we'll be giving are the best schools in the environmental championship, including tree growing. The schools that have had tree nurseries that are doing quite well. Again, the schools that have tree nurseries, we are also buying seedlings from them, and they are seeing the benefits, because one of the schools we were hearing from, they were able to get 500,000 in a month from just selling the seedlings. So this is, again, something that students are taught and they are able to nurture. So having the environmental clubs, we are working, first of all, at a national level together with the Ministry of Education, routine meetings with the Waziri Ogamba, to be able to see how do we push this program forward. They had a strategy, and we are looking at how we can support in implementation of the same. They've had multiple meetings with the county directors, the sub-county directors, being able to map out schools, being able to see the logistics to ensure that the seedlings are again in school, identifying what land is available, and then also ensuring that the holes are dug to when the alumni come in to grow or to plant the seeds. But then again, the children, it's really about nurturing, and we are seeing how do we embed that curriculum into the Ministry of Education, because I believe that even as we educate our children, we need to see what resources do we have, how do we educate them in order for them to be able to venture into those businesses. It's not just about white-collar jobs. It's not just about going out there in other countries, but what resources do we have, and how do we capacitate them? How do we embed this into the curriculum so that all our children are educated and have a way of life thereafter?
Waziri, the answer that I've heard from you sounds very much like a boardroom answer, because I was hoping to actually hear that 2 years down the road, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Forestry have actually rolled out this program. It sounds to me that the Ministry of Education is still having conversations with the county directors of education.
No. This is just about Mazingira Day.
Okay. So
but as a ministry,
in the program for tree planting,
yes.
Okay. What is the plan, or what is the actual program being implemented by the Ministry of Education? Like I asked specifically, have school heads been directed to designate a portion of their land for trees, fruit trees? It's an orchard. It's also a learning thing. How many schools have actually established these orchards? How many trees do we have in how many schools in this country? We know the number of schools we have, and we can even count the number of trees in those schools.
Yes.
Right? How many trees do we have in those schools? Like, those are the numbers I'd like to hear. So that I can see that actually this program is moving and it's...
Yes, so we have 35,000 or thereabout number of schools. Right now, what we are starting with is in each sub-location we have 9,127, and we are having the chiefs going there to support. And then we have our CSs, our PSs. Now I'm talking about Mazingira Day. CEOs and chairmen, each one going there to plant 2,000 trees based on the land. So all that has been allocated. I wish the Ministry of Education was here to give us the tangible figures. But those are the tasks. We told them we need, out of the 35,000 schools, how many have a piece of land? How many can have orchards? How many trees can they accommodate? So that is ongoing, and that is why we are rallying this during Mazingira Day. Previously, what was going on is that within the school, what we had given each ministry, each MDA has been given a target by the government on how many seedlings or how many trees they should grow based on their capacity. Mm-hmm. So even education has had theirs, okay? So now we are really pushing and going sector by sector, seeing what needs to be done, engaging them. Because we've done 1 billion, but we should have done 3 billion by now. Mm-hmm. So yes, we are doing well as a country, as I said. We are 500% plus compared to the previous regime. Mm-hmm. But then again, those are now engaging with the Ministry of Education to ensure that this is implemented, because they are the ones with the staff, and they need to rally the cause. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I believe that maybe next time when we have the Ministry of the Education, they will give us the tangible results, but we are having the environmental clubs.
They should be reporting to you.
Mm-hmm. They are reporting to us the numbers.
So you should be the one who basically is getting all that information and saying this is where we are.
So for me, it's about the number of trees that they have planted. Mm-hmm. Because when I go to tourism, then I go to education, then we have transport. What we are telling them is this is the strategy. Mm-hmm. Along the roads, we need to green the cities. We need to green the roads, right? Mm-hmm. When you're going to schools, we are telling you that you have 35,000 schools, you have this number of human resource capacity, you have students. Mm-hmm. So now we are supporting them to come up with a strategy, and we are giving them the numbers. Mm-hmm. So what we are following up is the tangible numbers.
You're saying you want something more granular and strategic between ministries. Is it, if you're hearing Latiful, tomorrow sounds like it's a push to get all the partners really on board. Do you then feel like it's important to not just have reports of numbers? Because I think numbers are one thing, but ownership is another. Absolutely. Do you think then you can kind of push for collaborations that are a bit more granular, saying as Ministry of Education, how are we instilling this in students to make them own it? How many are we hoping to plant? Is that something that you hope you can achieve?
It is something that we are learning. First, we are doing, first of all, because we have focal points from each ministry, and we have been able to give them what are the strategies, what are the implementation, forms of implementation that they can have in order to achieve their targets and ultimately meet the 15 billion. So we have weekly meetings, we have monthly meetings, and then we have meetings as cabinet to ensure that everyone is reaching their targets. So that is there. But we wanted first to, myself, I would love to start with the education, because this is about nurturing the new generation, right? So then again, we're looking at, we even had a meeting with the basic education, the minister, and we gave them clear points. You know, we cannot micromanage, right? Because for us, it's about the numbers, but really clear points and seeing how we can rally through this. But fruit trees, orchards are critical for the Ministry of Education, for each school, because this is a way of ensuring that we are fighting food insecurity, fighting malnutrition, and ensuring that no child sleeps hungry.
All right, it's coming up to 7:30.
Yes.
We're in studio with Dr. Deborah Barasa, Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, talking about the 15 billion trees plan by 2032. When we come back, maybe if you can break down the budgetary allocation, speak to climate change and a few other critical issues. But stay with us and also engage us on our digital platforms. We're back in a moment.
We actually, do we have less than 10 years? Zimebaki ngapi?
We have 7 years.
Saba, sindio? Yes, zimebaki saba. Okay. All right.
We have to plant these trees.
Yeah.
We do.
Right? We may come and argue about the 13 billion. Okay, but how many can we actually plant? Right? A billion is something, and Waziri, you're saying, yeah, we're doing very well with a billion. I feel like we're not exploiting our entire full potential with that billion, and it would be important to know then what we do to scale up. We should be doing maybe 3 billion trees a year. We have very many people who can plant trees, who can nurture trees, who can grow trees, like you said, schools and students and so on. What are the people saying on socials?
People are saying, Paul Minor, a.k.a. Staki Mapepe, is saying, the program of 15 billion trees is over-ambitious. Where do some schools plant trees if they don't have land? what about the encroachment of some untouchable individuals to our forests? The Kikombe says, Kenya has launched several tree planting campaigns before. Most have faded. What concrete measures will ensure that our next leadership won't scrap this one? So two very critical questions. I feel like some have been touched on. Dr. Barasa was talking about that push for accountability and consistency, but encroachment is a big one. That's also come up, something that needs to be addressed. But yeah, people just saying it's a very overambitious program to have.
Yeah, and you were talking about billions. Now, if we are able to plant 100 million fruit trees, it means that we'll have 1 trillion in our economy. So you can see we are not leveraging on our forests and our trees as a country. Just 1 million of them. Yes, but as we were talking, maybe because it is community ownership, if every Kenyan takes it up upon themselves and ensure that we have fruit tree seedlings at a bare minimum of 150 shillings a seedling, then we are in the journey of achieving our targets. So I don't know, Janet, which school you'll be going to.
I'll let you know. I'll say it.
Yes.
But I do think that, I think we were talking about it even with Eric and Mariam and yourself. The low-hanging fruit is children as champions. If children start amplifying this loudly, everyone will follow suit. So hopefully the Mazingira Day celebrations go well tomorrow, and you can really champion Kenyans to take this up. It's in all our interest.
Yes, and the concern that the concern that you are raising, that it's a one-day event. No, we want the whole of the month of October to be about planting fruit trees in the primary schools. And I wish I can come back and give you now the tangible results with the Ministry of Education. Now, thereafter, now we will be able to scale it up. We don't want to drop the ball. We believe that we can be able to achieve this as a country. Ethiopia achieved it. And how did they do it? Community ownership. So if you and me are not going to the field at Wendy site, we're not planting the fruit trees, not planting even the indigenous trees and other commercial trees, we will not achieve this. So let us see how we can rally Kenyans, how we can psych up this momentum to ensure everyone is planting.
Right. And that ownership, I agree, is the key to it. The Kikombe had asked a question on how we've had several tree planting campaigns before. So how do we ensure that in the next administration we're still planting these 15 billion trees? What safeguards are there, or do we just lose this? It becomes another, project.
Yes. So we are in discussions to see how we can ring fence resources that are, really about ecosystem restoration. And those are the discussions we are having with Treasury. That is, again, how countries have been able to ensure that it's carried on to next administrations and generations to come. Yes.
I wonder what those discussions look like. I'd like to get, a bit more insight, because we don't ring fence much around here. If someone comes and they sweep,
it's those other people. And we're just wasting money on planting trees. We will spend that money on educating our children, and so on and so on, because it becomes a money conversation.
It does.
But see, it becomes a personal, individual conversation, an ownership conversation. It will be something. It would also be good to get to understand those other countries that have done it. Ethiopia, our neighbor, if they did it, what exactly is it that they have done? And are we borrowing a lot of that here? And seeing how much we carry on that? We know, Waziri, that you need to be leaving. You have a meeting. The COMESA heads of state and government have been in the country.
Yes.
And you want to go and join in that conversation. Tomorrow, people are going to be at home, not at work. But many people don't know where they can get a tree seedling or where they can go and plant a tree. So what would you tell them?
First of all, in primary schools, we are ensuring that we have fruit tree seedlings for you to plant. Secondly, we are saying that you need to donate, you need to contribute, and we are saying go to the school and plant a fruit tree. So it is an initiative. We need to have community ownership. I want you to go to your primary school or a primary school near you, so that you can go and plant the fruit trees. Along the road, we have specific sites which we will communicate, where NYS will be selling fruit seedlings at 150 shillings. But if you're unable to access that, kindly, this is again a 1 month rally, so that you are able to get the fruit trees and get them to school, because every fruit tree that you plant will be able to feed tens and hundreds of students in that school, and also they'll be able to get some resources in that school. Sasa vile tunasema turudi primo, to donate fruit seedlings na tupande na pia to clean environment. Hivyo ndio tutaweza kusomesha watoto waweze kutunza mazingira yetu na waweze kupanda miti. Asanteni.
All right. You're leaving us with George Tarus, who is the Secretary for Forestry?
Yeah. Yes, he is.
Yeah, he's got a couple of questions to answer.
All right.
And so, Waziri, thank you for joining us. We'll be having a conversation with George Tarus shortly. The Cabinet Secretary for Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, Deborah Barasa, has been our guest as she leaves. Then also, people are still having this conversation
yes,
online.
People are. So Mariam had already asked Waziri, the Kikombe's question, really just about how, what concrete measures will ensure that the next leadership would scrap this one. Paul Miner again talked about that over-ambitious. He didn't even say it's ambitious. He said it's over-ambitious. He said, where do schools plant trees when some don't have land? Encroachment. So the land and encroachment issue, I think, also needs to be debunked.
What do you mean where they don't have land?
Some schools don't have land. There was a huge
What do you
land
mean a
grabbing.
school does not have land?
It has the land that
has
infrastructure sits on.
Yes, but not much.
Then
Not much else.
Not much else.
Okay.
No green space.
It's
Or
a fair
no
point.
And
empty
that's a
space.
public land, a public school? Let's not talk about this commercialization of our education, by the way, where guys have come up and started
I see
putting
your
up
point.
schools on the 4th floor of an apartment building. Let's talk about how many public schools don't have land that they can set aside
Thinking about
for
my neighbor
playground.
primary school, wako na green space.
Yes.
I'm thinking about Moi Avenue Primary School, iko na green space.
Kunayo.
Moi Avenue Primary School.
Hii hapa.
Hii hapa, yeah.
Iko.
Iko. Okay.
Okay.
See, space you're green, but on a space.
And how much space?
And that's the idea now.
Yeah, to green that space. Okay. So it's still a fair, maybe that's the
But
misconception.
I think that also now comes into maybe a conversation we'll have later with the Ministry of Education and all. When you're licensing a school to operate, I mean, what are the bare minimums?
Yeah.
How do you have a school where learners, hundreds of learners are, and you don't even have a playground? At your school,
Yep.
learners have to get into a matatu to go and play in another
Yeah.
public playground.
Someone also said, hey, this regime in its early stage castigated a former CS for banning logging.
Yeah.
So what has changed now? That is Njenga Njogu asking on YouTube. But we're continuing the conversation with George Tarus, Secretary Forestry. Karibu sana, George.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let me just dive right in. The KFS, what capacity, for example, like how many forest rangers do we have? Because I'm thinking at 15 billion trees needing care, needing protection. I'm looking at the 70% of these that aren't fruit trees, that aren't going to be in the care of a lot of us civilians. So yeah, what's the capacity of the KFS as it stands?
Kenya Forest Service over the years have been capacity built through recruitment of additional staff for purposes of ensuring that they discharge their mandate. The role of Kenya Forest Service is a function they derive from Forest Conservation and Management Act, and their role is to ensure that all public forests are managed in a way that is able to be sustainable in nature. They have a responsibility to present over 2.6 million hectares of public forest and also work with counties for purposes of counties to execute their mandate. But I think it's good to contextualize the 15 billion agenda because the 15 billion agenda is an agenda that goes beyond public forests. It is an agenda that is aiming to reclaim our degraded lands. When we did an assessment almost 5 years ago, we realized that of the 59 million hectares that Kenya is endowed with, 38.8 million hectares of its land is in a degraded state. And degradation is defined as the inability of that specific land to do what it's supposed to do. You have agricultural lands that are diminishing in terms of its capacity to produce food. You have wetlands that are also diminished in its ability to function as a wetland. You have water towers that are also degraded. So the approach that it's agreed scientifically and globally is restoring them. And the restoration takes various pathways. You could do active tree planting. You could also protect it for purposes of its natural regeneration. looking at the diverse savannas and all that. So if you were to look at our strategy, we have 11 intervening areas that we would want to focus this initiative of tree growing. One of them is targeted, of course, in public forest, where Care Forest Service has the bigger role to ensure that that is delivered. But there is also a big significant area that is under private lands or agricultural lands. And that is where we are targeting agroforestry. And of course, the Mazingira theme is about schools, because we are working towards regaining our institutions to ensure that apart from being a learning institution, they are also healthy, the way Article 69 of our Constitution states. Yes. Peoples are able to breathe clean air, but more importantly also have food. And that's why we talked over to Rudy Primo to donate a fruit tree and to clean our environment. Because when we look at the land sizes and what site of intervention can work in a primary or a basic education setup, a fruit tree makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So it sounds like Rudy Primo, it's almost like adopt a primary school. There's various ways in which this can be amplified. You've talked about degradation.
Yes.
Can you speak to encroachment and who's being held responsible for it?
Yes, of course, encroachment in one or the other. Of course, Kenya in itself has a limited high potential lands. We have 70% of our lands under arid conditions. And over time, because of increased population, there's always a tendency to be able to either infringe into areas that are not supposed to be infringed on. And part of those infringement we've seen over the years are forest lands. But of course, the current administration has been very clear on what needs to happen. You've seen interventions, first of all through strengthening of Kenya Forest Service capacities to surveil, and we recruited the largest number of rangers in the recent history. Almost 2,700 rangers were recruited for purposes of continuous patrol to ensure that the integrity of the forests are protected. We've also been doing active...
Sorry, when was this recruitment?
It happened last year. They passed out last year. So now KFS has enhanced capacity in terms of its ability to superintend, patrol, and ensure that their boundaries are not encroached into.
How many, sorry, let me just hang on there a little bit. How many rangers do we have now in total? 2,300 passed last year.
So of course, they may not have up to standard. So they are very accurate numbers because it's the mandate of Kenya Forest Service, but I know they're adequate to be able to deliver their role in terms of protecting our forest. But more importantly, of course, the approach of protecting our forest in multifaceted ways. There is a very strong component of community coming in also, because communities have existed with this forest for the longest. And if you were to look at the forest law, there is an entire chapter of community participation, where communities living around the forests have been organized into community forest association. And they are also coming in very strongly to ensure that they collaborate and co-plan and co-manage those forests. I also was going to this point of looking at other ways of ensuring that those boundaries are kept intact. And one that has succeeded in many other parts is fencing. So there is also a lot of efforts to ensure that we fence our forest. The case in example is Karura. It's now completely fenced, and people are able to enjoy the ambience. There are conversation along fencing also on Ngong Road and many other forests across the country. So that's how we intend to protect our public forest for posterity.
George, you're a forester through and through, right?
Yes, I am.
In your training?
Yes.
From your university, your master's, your PhD, studying forestry and forestry. If you look at our forests in Kenya and look at community attitudes towards forests, do we have the same attitude about trees and environment and forests today as our forefathers did?
Of course, forests exist for various purposes. They are extractive, they are non-extractive. And it's also context specific, because there are regions where when somebody looks at a forest, they are looking at it as a source of wood. They are looking at it as a source of pasture. They are looking at it as a source of water for their livestock. There are regions, especially in urban environment, where now people are looking at forest more from a recreational standpoint. It's a place they can go, breathe the fresh air, take a walk, and all that. And that's a training of a forester. Of course, with increasing population, there is a lot of now pressure facing these green spaces. And also in our management now, we're introducing quite a number of dynamic approaches to it. Number one, that we over the years been now ensuring that is entrenched and strengthened is the role of communities. So that those communities around that resource who appreciate the value of that resource from their own lens are also able to participate and say, for us, we want to manage this forest to give us water, to give us pasture. Another community tell you, no, ours, we want to have this forest standing because it's our place, we want to walk, we want to do so many other things that are meaningful from their own lenses. Yes.
So I'm asking that question because you've talked about fencing of forests.
Yes.
So if our attitude with forests is so positive, why are we fencing it off?
Of course, where we are proposing to do fencing are areas where we are seeing propensity for incursion. People are interested in creating lands beyond what they currently own. And the target most of the time is push some few centimeters of the forest because they want to have more land for agriculture. So the whole idea around either hard fencing or social fencing is to ensure that this forest can remain standing in the same inches even into the future. That's the whole idea.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the government's policy on indigenous forests versus plantation forests, where we're seeing this, what are they called, exotic trees being
Harvested.
planted for harvesting purposes?
Yeah, so if you look at our national forest policy, the policy is very clear that there are forests that are meant to be grown and harvested for purposes of satisfying the needs for those wood products. We have industries that in other countries have been able to flourish. Look at paper industry, for instance, look at furniture industry, look at the construction industry. Those needs are also in Kenya, and they need to be met. And therefore, the reason why if you go to a forest, there are processes called zonation, where zones are set aside for purposes of commercial or indigenous, of course, commercial species that are grown and focused on delivering a product after some time. There are also areas that are no-go zone, where its reason why they exist is to do other non-extractive reasons, water, clean our environment, and provide other benefits that may not be commercial in nature. So that is our policy as it is, and we would be hoping to continue with the same. Yes.
I want to speak a little bit to comparisons. Sources here, UN, SDGs, database, Associated Press, News, etc. We've talked about Ethiopia a lot. So the Green Legacy Initiative, the target was 50 billion trees by 2026. Planted so far, 40 billion trees have been planted since 2019, because this was under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Ethiopia set a world record in 2019. They planted 350 million trees in one day. 2025 goal to plant 7.5 billion trees. However, it talks about the fact that some of the trees, the survival rate of those trees remains uncertain, which goes back to what you were saying. So I've heard Dr. Barasa speak a lot about Ethiopia. I think it's, in terms of in Africa, it seems to be a really good comparison to make. They were able to do it. I'm just putting it out there as a banter point. They were able to do it, and they say it's doable. And they say that it took a lot of community mobilization. People were mobilized, citizens were mobilized.
When the government of Ethiopia says community mobilization,
yes,
exactly how do they do it?
It mobilized millions of citizens in schools, government offices, and nationwide.
Okay.
And supported over 130,000 nurseries producing seedlings each year. The word here is that it sounded very intentional. You're the one, Latif, who brought up the point to Dr. Barasa that I think we're failing on how much more intentional it could be. Maybe after tomorrow there'll be something else that Mr. Tarus can report and say, now we have sold the dream. But can I also quickly segue to budgets? What's the budgetary allocation for this exercise?
Of course, if you were to look at the strategy for us to deliver it, it requires well above a trillion Kenya shillings in terms of its investment over the 10 years. But of course, if you were to look at it from a budgetary standpoint, that might be a mirage. So we flip the other way around, that you see, this is the plan. We have 11 intervention areas. this is the potential of what it can do. Therefore, let's try and create economic opportunities along all these possible value chains. Number one, if you are to do, for instance, the 100 million fruit trees that we are aiming to do, in the next 3 years, that will be an industry of itself. Because you have avocados that are available, you have mangoes that are available. And you're looking at an economy of almost $1 trillion shillings. If you were to say one tree is to give you 10,000.
When you say 100 million fruit trees, in how long?
That's the campaign that we're now officially going into, looking at the primary schools and the secondary schools that we have. Which school is to do 2,000? That's well around 100 million opportunities in our primary schools.
Dr. Barasa said, though, 30%, the aim was to have 30% of the 15 billion trees be fruit trees.
Correct. But I'm just talking about the primary
schools.
Yeah, for schools.
Okay, yeah. Just for the schools.
We're using schools as an entry point. Okay. But of course, within the wider 15 billion agenda, 30% of that, which is almost 5 billion or so, is the fruit trees. And we're just looking at the economics around that. And therefore, it will make sense for you, even as a citizen, to plant a fruit tree, which adds to the 15 billion because it has an economic benefit down the road. Of course, that in itself will be an investment towards delivering our strategy. Look at the whole huge potential of our arid and semi-arid lands, where we are looking at almost delivering the 50% of our targets. And already we've gone further ahead and started looking at potential regulations like government resins, like import-export regulations. And the whole idea, therefore, is to unlock the innate economic opportunities that are there, and therefore trigger the upstream in terms of its production. Of course, to be able to start the journey, the ministry has been allocated some resources to build the base, to ensure that there are seedlings available in large numbers for people to start picking up. But the whole idea in terms of sustainability is to set up a revolving self-sustaining system to ensure that those trees that are in that landscape would continue standing there and delivering the wider economic opportunities. When we look at that strategy, and we even said at a conservative value of 5,000 shillings per tree that would remain standing after 10 years. If you do times 15 billion, you can look at the injection of the resources into our economy. Yes.
George, Tarus, thank you very much for joining us. We'll invite you again and again so we can just keep track of this progress that's going on. It's good to actually hear from the technocrats in some of these spaces. George is the Secretary for Forest Development. You're also the Head of Forest Conservation Directorate in the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. He's been our guest alongside the Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Deborah Barasa. Tomorrow is to go out and plant trees. In the next hour, we have a Shika Mike. Shika Mike, what do you need for you to register as a voter? Why must you register as a voter if you've registered as a citizen? That's the conversation. Keep it here for that.